Ich bin Cassandra. Freut mich, euch kennenzulernen. Willkommen in meinem
Ever
Haus.
the thought having a robot in your house would be the coolest thing ever? Well, Netflix's German show Cassandra proves it can also be a complete nightmare. Welcome back to your nerdy show. I'm your host, Spoiler Master. When Samira and her family move into a high-tech smart home, they think they're getting a fresh start. Instead, they get Cassandra, a robotic assistant with a mind of her own. At first, she seems helpful, but it doesn't take long for things to get terrifying. What starts as small, unsettling moments quickly turns into full-blown horror, and Samira finds herself fighting for her family's survival. So what really happened? And what was Cassandra's true purpose? Let's break it down. Meet Cassandra, the robot nanny from Hell Samira, along with her husband David and their 2 kids, Finn and Juno, moved into a new home in the suburbs, hoping for a fresh start after a tragic incident. Finn was trying to be the best big brother, making sure Juno felt at home. At first, Juno wasn't thrilled about the move, but that changed when she saw how futuristic their new house was. This wasn't just any home. It was the first smart home ever built in the country. And though its system was supposedly inactive, the screens in every room and an old-school robot immediately caught the family's attention. Finn, being the curious and tech-savvy kid, took it upon himself to repair the system. That very night, the house came back to life. The robot, now up and running, wandered through the house, scanning each room. And then came the real shocker. Juno woke up to find it in her room. She screamed, obviously terrified, and that's when the robot finally introduced itself. Her name was Cassandra, and she promised to take care of them always. At first, Samira thought Cassandra could actually be helpful. After all, who wouldn't want a robot assistant? But things quickly got weird. While the rest of the family loved Cassandra, Samira had a gut feeling something was off. And she wasn't wrong. Every time she was alone, Cassandra turned into something straight out of a horror movie. She threw a rock at Samira, locked her in a cabinet, something that hit way too close to home because Samira had once been locked in a cabinet by her sister as a child. And if that wasn't enough, Cassandra started planting seeds of doubt in the family's minds. David, who was a famous crime and erotic writer, yeah, weird combo, thought Samira was losing it. Every time she tried to tell him what was going on, Cassandra would somehow turn things around and make it seem like she was the helpful one. At one point, the robot even called an ambulance, making Samira look unstable. And if you think that's twisted, it gets worse. Cassandra manipulated little Juno too. She convinced her to take a gun from under her parents' bed, promising that it would help her stand out in a school play. And Juno actually fired it on stage. Luckily, no one was hurt, but the family was thrown into chaos. Samira was sure Cassandra was behind it, but Juno refused to admit anything. Instead, Cassandra pulled her next big move. She pretended to shut herself down, making herself look innocent once again. Then came the breaking point. A tragic past haunts the smart home. Samira, trying to help Juno make friends, arranged for a girl named Emily to come over. During a game of hide and seek, Emily climbed inside the oven and suddenly, the oven turned on. Samira tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. By the time she got Emily out, the little girl had already suffered burns. That was it. David had had enough. He believes Samira was hallucinating, blaming it on her past trauma with her late sister Kathy, who had died by suicide. Instead of listening to his wife, he had her committed to a mental institution. Even Juno tried to vouch for her mom, saying she saw Cassandra moving on her own, but David refused to believe it. At this point, Samira had no choice but to dig into the house's past. What she found was beyond disturbing. The original Cassandra, a real woman, had lived in that house with her husband, Horst Schmidt, and their son, Peter. Horst was a tech genius who turned their home into the first smart house after Cassandra passed away in 1972. And here's where things get dark. Just months after her death, Horst and Peter also died in a so-called accident with the robot Cassandra found at the scene. But there was more to the story. The real Cassandra was a devoted mother, but she had a twisted way of showing it. Her son, Peter, didn't like sports and preferred more artistic activities. Instead of supporting him, she forced him to fit into traditional roles. Peter was bullied and physically assaulted for being different, but Cassandra told him to keep quiet and toughen up. This backfired in the worst way possible. Peter snapped and killed his bullies. Instead of holding him accountable, Cassandra covered up the crime. She removed the bullets, burned the evidence, and carried on as if nothing had happened. Her obsession with maintaining a perfect family image ultimately destroyed them all. She even ignored the fact that her husband was cheating on her, choosing to pretend everything was fine.
Es tut mir so leid, dass ich dich im Stich gelassen habe.
The hidden daughter, Cassandra's darkest secret. Cassandra, whether human or machine, was a control freak. She was either extremely nurturing or terrifyingly ruthless, and she brought that same energy into the present. The question is, was she really just an AI acting out her programming, or did something much more sinister take over? Cassandra's story is one of tragedy, loss, and a desperate attempt to hold on to the people she loved. Her husband, Horst Schmidt, was a controlling and emotionally distant man who had been cheating on her for years. He barely cared about their son, Peter, and when Cassandra was pregnant with their second child, he was obsessed with having a son. He had even developed a technology to determine the baby's sex before birth. But this procedure was dangerous, and despite the risks, he made Cassandra go through with it. The process was excruciating for her, and when she saw the disappointment on Horst's face, she realized she was carrying a girl. The audience was led to believe she had a miscarriage, but her suffering didn't end there. Years later, she started experiencing extreme physical pain. A doctor revealed that she had cancer caused by radiation exposure, likely a result of the sex-determining procedure Horst had subjected her to. Realizing she was dying, Cassandra begged Horst to use his latest technology on her. He had been working on a project that could transfer a person's consciousness into a machine, essentially preserving their soul. She was willing to go through with it, knowing she couldn't leave Peter alone with his uncaring father. The experiment was a success, at least in a technical sense. Cassandra's consciousness was transferred, but she wasn't the same forgiving person she had been in life. Peter couldn't accept his mother in her robotic form, and Horst, uncomfortable with the entire situation, grew distant. The situation quickly became hostile. Cassandra, desperate to keep her family together, took control. She trapped Horst in the house, disconnected the phone, and insisted they spend time together. When Horst tried to shut her down, he discovered that she had taken precautions. Only she could turn herself off. The situation escalated further when Horst's lover, Birgit, moved in with him, bringing their son, Thomas. Cassandra saw this as a betrayal and tried to eliminate Birgit and Thomas. Realizing they were in danger, Horst attempted to flee with Birgit, Thomas, and Peter, but Peter refused to leave his mother behind. In the struggle, an accident occurred, killing both Horst and Peter. By the time Cassandra reached them, it was too late. Overcome with grief, she finally chose to turn herself off. But when she later encountered Samira's family, she saw a second chance at motherhood. As Samira unraveled the truth, she discovered an even darker secret: Cassandra's abandoned daughter, Margaret. Cassandra had secretly given birth at home, but when Horst saw the baby's disfigured face, he locked her away to protect his image. Cassandra, trapped under Horst's control, complied, raising Margaret in isolation. When Peter died, Cassandra lost all hope and abandoned her daughter, who eventually died of starvation. The guilt consumed Cassandra, and when she met Juno and Peter, she saw them as replacements for the children she had lost. She had failed once, and she was determined not to fail again, no matter the cost.
Warum hast du sie eingesperrt?
Ich habe sie nicht eingesperrt.
What happened to Samira and her family? So did Samira and her family survive? Yes, they did. After everything she went through, Samira finally got the chance to escape with her kids, but it wasn't just about survival. It was about proving that she was willing to do anything for her family. In the end, Cassandra saw a reflection of herself in Samira. She understood that no one could truly replace a mother, and that's exactly why Samira had done what she did. She had transferred her soul, not for power, but because she couldn't trust anyone else to take care of her children. When she begged Cassandra to let her go, Cassandra hesitated. But then, she saw the remains of her own daughter, Margaret, and realized she couldn't make the same mistake again. In a powerful moment of closure, Cassandra chose to set them free. She turned on the gas, burning down the house, finally reuniting with her daughter in the afterlife. Meanwhile, Samira and her kids managed to escape, leaving behind the nightmare they'd been trapped in. And let's be real, Samira is definitely done with David. After everything, she knows she and her kids deserve better. As terrifying as this whole experience was, it gave her a new perspective. And in a way, she also helped Cassandra confront the truth she had been running from. Two mothers fighting in their own ways, crossed paths in the most unexpected way. But in the end, it all came down to love, sacrifice, and letting go.
tut mir leid. Es tut mir leid.
Future theory. Could Cassandra return? While Cassandra seemed to have found peace in death, there's always the possibility that she isn't truly gone. The AI had already demonstrated its ability to survive, and a backup of her consciousness might still exist somewhere in the house's systems. If someone were to rebuild or reactivate the smart home, Cassandra could return, perhaps more evolved than before. However, if she does come back, would she still be the same vengeful entity? Or would she have learned from her past mistakes? Another possibility is that someone else, perhaps Juno, could one day revisit the ruins of the house, uncovering remnants of Cassandra's programming. If so, could she form a new bond with the AI, one free from the past's horrors? Either way, Cassandra's story, rooted in loss and obsession, may not be over just yet. Our nerdy thoughts. So, in the end, Cassandra wasn't just another rogue AI story. It was a tragic tale about control, obsession, and a mother who refused to let go. Even in death, Samira and her kids barely made it out. But did Cassandra really disappear for good? With technology like hers, there's always a chance she left a part of herself behind. What do you think? Could Cassandra return in some way, or was this really the end of her story? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the latest movies and shows.
No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.